Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anatomy of an Adaptation. This is a podcast that aims to compare and contrast classic novels with their cinematic adaptations. I'm your host, Nicolo Grasso, and today we're starting something a little bit different. If you listen to the last couple of episodes, both the one on the road, talking together with Raphael Felix, and then the one on One Battle After Another, together with Hilary White, you know that I was teasing this episode, this new format of episodes, because of course, today I'm not joined by anyone. Today you are here with me. It's a simple monologue. My idea was to kind of strip back the format of the show because, as you can imagine, it's not that easy to always find people interested in reading certain books, watching certain movies. Sometimes I'm just reading something for my own research, for my own interests, and I'm thinking like, damn, I've read this book, I've watched this movie, I could just do an episode of the podcast if I wanted to. I just want to share my feelings, my thoughts on something that I've experienced, but to actually start planning an episode and finding guests, it is quite time consuming. And I am notoriously impatient when it comes to certain things, which is why I decided to just say, you know what? I can do it myself, inspired by some good comments of certain friends of mine, and listening to other podcasts that occasionally have solo episodes. I decided, why not? Why don't we do some solo Anatomy of an Adaptation episodes? And they will happen either alternating with the big episodes. There might be some breaks with those ones. There might be primarily those ones. Who knows? 2026 is shaping up to be a very weird year, a very unusual year. But again, surprises. We love surprises. We love to be surprised. And so we're here today in this inaugural solo episode of the podcast where I will be talking about one of my favorite novellas, White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and the two main adaptations, the one by Luchino Visconti in 1957 and by Robert Bresson in 1971.
Io ho ingannato te, me. Per un momento ho creduto che tu e io... Lo vede Dio quello che non farei ora per te. Cerca di perdonarmi. Io ti sarò sempre riconoscente.
Va da lui. Non devi avere rimorsi. Ho avuto torto io a volerti far dubitare. Va da lui. E che tu sia benedetta per l'attimo di felicità che mi hai dato. Non è poco. Anche in tutta un'intera vita.
White Nights was written in 1848 or published in 1848 by Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of the biggest literary figures of all time, one of the main proponents, one of the most important writers to come out of Russia, especially in the 19th century. And White Nights was released quite early in his career. He started writing and publishing his work in the early 1940s. His first proper novels, that weren't just collections of novellas or essays, started being published in 1946. So White Nights is still early on before we get to some heavy hitters like The Demons, Brothers Karamazov, and Crime and Punishment. I am a fan of Dostoevsky. I'm yet to read some of his big books because they are daunting. I've not read Brothers Karamazov or Demons yet, but I have read Notes from the Underground. I've read this. I've read Crime and Punishment. Funnily enough, we will have an episode coming out very soon talking about the new Silent Hill movie as a bonus episode. And the main reason why I read Crime and Punishment when I was, I want to say 14 or 15, is because I read that it was an inspiration for Silent Hill 2, the original video game. So I've always had this interest in seeking source material and drawing comparisons and things like that, even though at the time a lot of the political context that Dostoevsky embedded in his novel really flew over my head. But White Nights is a novella. It's very short. I'm going to say around 50 to 60 pages long, depending on the version you find. But it's absolutely beautiful. Dostoevsky is a very, for me, or from what I've read at least, is a very emotional storyteller. Nowadays, we might say sentimental, melodramatic, even. But I like that. I like the genuine emotions that he has throughout his novel and throughout his writing. And with White Knight, he creates a really timeless story. It's set during 4 nights, the 4 nights of following this one nameless dreamer, this first person narrator living in St. Petersburg. At home, he's only staying with his very, very old maid. He has no friends, barely works, barely has anything going in his life. And he's just borderline an incel. He's afraid of women. He's afraid of speaking to them, of talking to them. He's never had like a proper interaction with any of them. And one night, he just stumbles into a very sad, lonely girl. He wants to talk to her. Of course, he's afraid. He doesn't do it. Then she gets harassed by a man. He intervenes, saves her, brings her back home, and just spending some time with her, her holding his hand, makes him feel something he has never felt before. It gives him some love, some light for the future. And he says, like, hey, you know what? I would love to see you again. I'm gonna be here tomorrow at the same time. And the woman says, well, I can't stop you. I can't stop you from doing that. Free, it's a free country and all that. But I have to be there again as well. And we can talk about it and we can meet and figure it out, as long as you don't fall in love with me, as long as there is no romance. The guy agrees, even though, of course, he's already fallen for her. And so they end up meeting again over the course of 4 nights total. And I think that it's important to touch upon this point early on, is that the guy instantly falls for her. And it is both, for me, something very touching, in the sense of, like love at first sight, connecting with someone instantly. It's this idealized vision of love that has been repeated over and over again in Romance literature and stories, honestly, for millennia. We can go back to the ancient Greece. It's like people falling in love instantly just by looking at each other for being very sexy. But with White Knights, Dostoevsky tackles on the sadness of this narrator in a very sharp way. You're reading everything from his perspective. It's all narrated in first person. And this guy would have fallen in love with anyone who looked at him. This guy is so lonely, is so depressed, is so much starving for love, for attention. The simple touch of his hand makes him jittery. He's like, oh my God, she touched me. I've never felt this sensation before. And we can make fun of him if we want, of course, but I think it's sad. That's the best way I can encapsulate it. It's a very sad protagonist. And we also find out that the girl is not that different. We find out her name, Nastenska, and she was going to this same spot and will be going to this spot to wait for her lover. This guy who was like, there's a whole relationship that she has. I don't want to spend even too much time just recounting things, because I would recommend you read the story for yourself. But you have this very complicated relationship that Nastenska has with her mother back home, where she was always literally tied to her and became her shadow and was forced to stay at home. No boys, no nothing, which is also very, very sad. But she falls in love with this man who starts coming in the house more and more. He starts leaving books. They connect through the books that he leaves. She reads all of them. She starts falling for him. He invites both her and the mother to go to the theater with him to see The Barber of Seville. And they go, and it's this beautiful sequence that she narrates of just, the touches, the stares that they have. So basically, she has her own inspiring, oh my God, falling in love at first sight with this man, this handsome gentleman who unfortunately has to leave, but he promises that we're going to be together and he will be back in 1 year. And we say, we're going to meet in this place at this time and we can be forever in love. The only thing is, it doesn't show up. And that's where the central tragedy, we can say, romantic tragedy of White Nights lies, is that the narrator wants to help this woman, wants to help Nastenka by, writing to this man like, hey, okay, he's actually back in St. Petersburg, he has come back, you know that for sure, then just write him a letter, let's just give him this letter, let him know that you're still waiting for him, it's been a year, you've waited 1 year, you can wait another day for him, it's fine. But as he spends more time with her, he falls more and more in love with her. He starts double thinking everything and questioning everything that he's doing, because of course, like, oh, I want to love this woman and I want her to love me, but how am I going to embrace this fact that she has to leave me? So he almost sabotages the whole rekindling between Nastenka and the gentleman. And we get to the end of the story, which gets really, really sad, where the guy just like breaks down and opens up and tells her like, hey, I know you said I shouldn't have fallen in love with you. We were just going to talk. She keeps calling him like, my dear friend, my good friend. Oh, thankfully you're here. Shame on the other man for not being here, but you're here with me. And this only, understandably so, makes him a bit angry, a bit upset emotionally. Because, yeah, like, I am here. I'm here for you. I'm doing things for you. And you still treat me as his friend and I want to be something more. Again, he's a bit of a simp. But the tragedy comes at the end where Nastenka has this moment of doubt. Because for her, it's a moment of doubt. We are following the protagonist. But if we switch the narrative around and we start seeing everything from Nastenka's perspective, she's living like the ultimate romance of, I'm going to wait 1 year, being by myself, celibate, not having any way of contacting the love of my life. And after that, we're going to be together forever in love. This guy is just like a random extra coming into her life, someone that can help her, someone that can support her, but he's not the love of her life. She already has a love in her life. And she has a brief moment of doubt where she's thinking, hey, you know what? Actually, this guy has been here with me for the past 4 days. He's been very supportive. He's actually kind of cute. I like him. I like how shy he is. I like how he talks. I like how he reacts to things. This dreamer, very sad, very lonely. But when they almost agree to go be together and like, fuck the other guy, like, I'm here for you. I'm going to prove you that I'm a great man. Actually, what happens is that the guy just shows up. He's actually back. And Nastenka runs to him in open arms and goes back, thanks the narrator, kisses him. Ultimately, he receives a letter from her where she apologizes for everything that happened in the end, but she still wants to be friends. He should go to their wedding and like all those beautiful things. Like, yeah, he gets friend-zoned very brutally. But that's the way it has to be, I think. And the narrator recognizes it in the final moments. And he thanks her. He thanks her for gifting him this moment of bliss, this moment of joy, of feeling seen, of feeling loved. So despite having, for this relationship that never could have worked, that never could have been, he thanks her. He recognizes that it was needed for him because now he has lost his fear of talking to women, one hopes at least, and he can go on to have a brighter future, to have a brighter life, to actually speak with other women and maybe have more relationships and find true love, the right person, the right woman for him. I find this story to be incredibly beautiful. I mean, the way that Dostoevsky writes it is what makes it beautiful, because this dreamer could have easily been a creep, and he kind of is. But the way that everyone speaks in here, you know how people talk about Russian melodramas, or like everything is so heightened, everything is larger than life. That's exactly how it is in White Knights, and that's why I love it, to be honest. I like that the characters are not afraid of showing their heart and opening it up to the entire world and just screaming how they're feeling and what they're thinking. It's quite different from how we're used to character writing at this point, but I like it. I like it. I think we have lost our ways in some way, where we think that the stoicism and the quietness is the way to go. But I think by doing that, which is good, which is fine, and it's more true to life. We don't just go around almost like a musical, right? You don't go around just singing songs randomly during the day in the street with other people joining in. Similarly, you don't just open your art out to whoever you're talking to, just saying some of the most melodramatic lines possible. But that's what makes White Knights truly, truly beautiful. And this is also why it became inspiring for so many writers going forward, so many directors. Of course, it's been homaged to death, but we have had primarily two key adaptations from masters of cinema of the mid 20th century. The first one being Le Notti Bianche, The White Knights, by Luchino Visconti, starring Marcello Mastroianni, Maria Schell, and Jean Marais, respectively playing the narrator, in this case called Mario, the woman called Natalia instead of Nastenka, and the nameless lover. It's just called that, the lover. Jean Marais is the lover. And honestly, Jean Marais is dreamy. I'm a big fan of this guy. I'm a big fan of this cast, to be honest. Like, all three of them are legends of 20th century cinema. Jean Marais especially worked with so many, like, everything he did with Jean Cocteau is absolutely golden. If you've not watched anything by Jean Cocteau, either The Beauty and the Beast, which we actually did an episode on a couple of years ago with Hilary White, that I recommend you go listen to. But Marcello Mastroianni working with Visconti is chef's kiss. And Visconti is a director that I have a lot of respect for. I don't necessarily call him one of my favorites from Italian cinema, even though I am Italian myself. But White Knights, Le Notti Bianche, is a very, very strong adaptation. There are some big changes. I think, of course, and we will see it also with the Bresson one. But one of the main changes in this case, of course, is the location. And we don't really know where we are. If anything, Visconti actually sets this in a dreamy landscape, in this city that's kind of mid-Italy, almost like a town near Rome. But there are these canals and these bridges that are heavily reminiscent of Venice. Of course, everything was shot inside Cinecittà Studios, which is what gives it this air of artificiality, we could say, but the set design here is glorious. Visconti was famous not for using intense close-ups all the time, but just staging these masterful wide shots with characters moving in and out and around them. And God, there's so many stunning, stunning sequences in here. The black and white cinematography as well is truly outstanding. But the main story is not that different. If anything, the primary change, outside of, like, the woman is a foreigner. She's not Italian, but she's living in Italy. She has that very weird relationship. I don't remember if it's actually her mother or grandmother or aunt or whatever, with the little pin being tied to the dress so she cannot run away and run around. It's very messed up. But the primary change comes from the protagonist, for me, played by Mastroianni. The dreamer of Mastroianni is less of an incel, less of a simp, because of course it's Mastroianni. He's for I mean, if you don't know who he is, he was in La Dolce Vita by Fellini. He was in pretty much every great Italian film from the 1950s to the 1960s, like a golden couple of decades for him, working with all the great masters and in so many classics nowadays of Italian cinema. And with Le Notti Bianche, it feels almost like a subversion of the type of character he would play. He would play this super suave, stunning gentleman who would seduce women and, is going around with the suits and the sunglasses. He was a sex symbol, basically. Just to put it plainly, he was a sex symbol. So to have him play the lonely dreamer, he brings an aura of, I'm even trying to find the right word for it. It feels very regal. He has poise. That's actually a good word. He has poise. He is strong in the face of adversity. He starts falling in love with this woman who's or initially kind of scared by him, which I get. Like, this random gentleman is just following you around the city and he really wants to talk to you. But the relationship that they develop, Mastroianni and Maria Schell, is beautiful. It truly is touching. And while in the Dostoevsky story, the narrative tends to kind of happen exclusively outside. They meet up, they talk, maybe write a little bit of a letter, they leave, they meet up, they talk, and so on and so forth. In Le Notti Bianche, they actually do some things. In this case, there's this memorable, I wouldn't say iconic, but there is a very memorable sequence in here where they go into like a juke joint, like this bar with a jukebox that's playing and people are just dancing around. And this is when both of the characters are kind of at the height of their friendship. Mastroianni is truly fallen for her. She's kind of teasing him, but also she has the hope that her lover will appear soon enough. And the dancing here is just, the beauty of a good dance scene is that it can render physical things that cannot be said. And the way that there is some shy awkwardness in the dancing, some boldness by Mastroianni just pulling off some weird moves. They're dancing together. There's other people joining in and out. It's truly intoxicating. And it's the kind of scene that shows character development and all those things very naturally, not in a way that feels forced. And also it's cinematic. Like, who doesn't love a good dance scene? And here it's truly, truly great. And I think it complements the dreamy atmosphere that the entire film has. There's a little bit of fog and mist in those streets. There's people just going through those bridges, boats in the canals. It's truly quite different from how Dostoevsky envisioned and portrayed a quiet, cold St. Petersburg, but it captures the same loneliness that the protagonist has. And in here, I love that they actually show the way that Natalia fell in love with the lover. Jean Marais is just like, pitch. If you've not seen Jean Marais, just look up a photo of him now. Look at the jawline on the man. He was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And those sequences are great. And even the ending, there's that moment of slight hope that comes for the dreamer, in this case for Mastroianni, where he just opens himself up. He tells Natalia, like, I'm loving you, I fall in love with you, and like, I want to give this a chance. I want to be with you. I want this hope. I feel the hope for this. And she agrees, only to then see the lover just standing on the bridge that they were supposed to meet in. Oh, it's heartbreaking. And, they hug and they kiss one last time. And my God, like, seeing Marcello Mastroianni cry and telling her, like, thanking her, that moment of bliss, that entire sequence is just absolutely outstanding. I think the film nails the landing. It's also not long. Neither of these two films is particularly long, which I can respect. White Nights is not a 500-page Russian epic. White Nights is a novella. So to extend this into like a 2+ hour film would be incredibly gratuitous, unless you had good reasons to do that, but it's unlikely anyone has or anyone will. But I really did love the Mastroianni version and the Visconti version, apologies. And then now we get to the Robert Bresson adaptation, Four Nights of a Dreamer, released in 1971, starring Guillaume de Forest as Jacques, the titular dreamer, Isabelle Weingarten playing Marthe, and Jean-Maurice Mounier? Munoz, I don't know. French listeners, please correct me. And he plays Marthe's lover. This time, the location is different, the setting is different. Of course, we are in sweet, lovely, dreamy Paris in France. And Bresson is a director that I have grown to love. I really didn't like him at first when I was studying film, almost a decade ago at this point, Jesus. But I started watching his classics and I could just not connect. I really could not connect. And I really don't know why. I think I was just too young. I was looking for different things from cinema than minimalism, very long shots of people's hands and people's faces and barely anything happening. This is my thinking at the time, of course. But then watching Lancelot of the Lake really changed my mind and really changed my opinion of his work. And I've grown to love him. I've revisited most of his films, the ones that I didn't like at first, and I do consider him the master that he is, rightfully so. Just one of those things that comes with time, with experience, with knowledge. And For Eyes of a Dreamer is kind of an underseen or at least underrated film in his filmography. It was recently restored, but I'd already seen it once. Well, for me, the Visconti film was a first-time watch. The Robert Bresson film, For Eyes of a Dreamer, I'd already seen like 3 or 4 years ago because it came out on Le Cinema Club. And if you don't know Le Cinema Club, go follow them on social media, go on their website, bookmark it. Every week they have a new free movie you can watch online. It can be a short film, it can be a full film, art house, classic, new release, whatever you want, remastered. It's truly an embarrassment of riches. So every week you have something interesting and new to watch. And that's when I watched this film. And I didn't even realize at first it was going to be an adaptation of White Nights. And it is very peculiar, to say the least. I actually liked it slightly less upon a rewatch, and not necessarily because of any adaptational changes. If anything, that's actually something that I do really appreciate that Bresson does. While Visconti goes for a more straightforward adaptation, just like adding some scenes here and there and some more background, especially to Mastroianni's character. In here, Jacques, the protagonist, the dreamer, he is an artist, and already that flips things around, changes things in the relationship in this perspective. He is an artist who's struggling to create, who's struggling to dream, you could even say. He's also a simp. He's also incredibly creepy. He lives in the dirtiest house. The one that Mastroianni had was kind of like your average, like Italian shared apartments. Like, yeah, it's a little bit messy, but it's lived in, it's lived in. But the one that Jacques lives in this film is absolutely dirty. There's like dishes everywhere. He doesn't clean up. He has multiple glasses around. He's not living a good life, you could say, for sure. And the way that he meets the woman, Marthe, in this case, is not through just happenstance and she's very sad and he comforts her. No, the way that he meets her is that she's attempting suicide. It's quite extreme. She's so lonely and so sad, and her lover is not coming. He has abandoned her, that she tries to throw herself off a bridge. He blocks her, he saves her, and instead of making a big fuss about it, he decides to bring her back home. And that's when they start connecting and they decide to meet again. And that's when you get in the 4 nights, that are very clearly chaptered even in this film, similarly to the book. And the film, the best way that I can describe the differences is that Robert Bresson really goes for sex in this film. He goes for the sexuality inherent in the relationship. Of course, everything that's happening in the Dostoevsky story is 100% platonic, especially the relationship that Nastenska and her lover have. I want to say they just maybe kiss once, if that. That's how they are in love with one another. But in the Bresson version, it's it's very overtly sexual. The Isabel Weingarten has very extended nude scenes in this, as she recounts her relationship with this lover, who's like someone who also works in film or has a way of getting tickets to a film premiere for a very, very shitty crime thriller. People were saying that it was a parody of either French cinema at the time. I read some saying that it looked like a Godard, like a shitty Godard film. I've not seen a Godard film that has that amount of shootouts in it. He has had shootouts, of course, don't get me wrong. I've seen plenty of Godard. But yeah, it is a funny scene, though, that they're going to this premiere, and it's almost a way for the lover of Marthe, who's not yet her lover, to get revenge because she's been treating him a bit dirty. That's a fun sequence, but the relationship that they have, like, it turns sexual, then he has to go away, they decide to meet again, he doesn't show up. I don't know, there's something in the way that Bresson just paces the film in general that I'm not the biggest fan of. He understands the creepiness of the dreamer, which is necessary, I believe, to truly get what's going on here. This should not be an idealized situation. Like, no one should be reading Dostoevsky's White Nights and thinking, hey, I want to be like that. I want this to happen to me. You don't want this to happen to you. Trust me. You don't want to find yourself in such a lonely, lonely place that you can't be with. You can't interact with anyone. You are basically an hikikomori before the term was even invented. Just staying home, not doing anything, being alone, being by yourself. All of those stories predate the internet as well, so it would be interesting if anyone was interested in readapting this to the modern age, and having that element of the web, maybe. I don't know, probably someone already has and I just don't know about it. But the character in Bresson's film is very hard to like really, really hard to like. Intentionally so, knowing the director. I would never call him, outside of like some protagonists, I would never call him someone who wants you to fall in love with his main characters. If anything, he almost wants you to understand them, but also judge them. They tend to make very big mistakes. They tend to be unlikable. Or maybe for some people, they're not unlikable, but, you know, they are complicated characters. They're not heroes in any sense. So with Four Nights of a Dreamer, instead of simply being, oh, a man finally discovers love and he feels seen, he feels wanted, he experiences this for one time and then is just, you know, happy with it and has hope for the future. What actually happens by the end when they just, you know, oh, we're going to be together now, let's give it a shot. And then they just stumble into the lover through the street, which is incredibly awkward. And this is a problem I have in general with this story, if we wanted, is that, like, kind of fuck the guy, right? It's just like, yeah, they just randomly see him in the street. And it's just like, hey, Marthe, it's me. And she's like, oh, shoot. Oh, you're here. Oh, well, bye, Jacques. I'm going. See you. Thank you. Bye. Just like dropping him like that. It's very cold. It's very awkward as well, I'm not going to lie. But that's Bresson for you with his minimalism. But what she does give him is newfound creative freedom, creative inspiration, which is what he was looking for. After all, he spends much of the movie trying to paint. He's using this cassette tape, recording his own voice, dreaming of Marthe, having basically erotic fantasies of her, and just, you know, saying her name over and over again, listening to it on public transport. Like, it's very Bressonian, okay? And in a way that I can respect, I can appreciate. And that's probably why I did really like it the first time around, especially going into it as just its own film. But looking at it as an adaptation, I think we can get towards the closing thoughts here. I do really prefer what Visconti did, despite making it a more straightforward adaptation. I can commend Bresson for going in a different direction, for updating the film for the times, because I mean this was made over 120 years after the book was written, and it makes it more sexual. It doesn't shy away from saying like, yeah, like Martha and her lover, they had sex, and that's also one of the reasons why they will want to stay together for longer, and why she can wait and hold on. They have had a consummation of their love, of their relationship. But to put it bluntly, if I had to choose, I think Visconti does capture the melodrama and the emotional intensity of Dostoevsky's story, but Visconti is also a bit more of a melodramatic director when he wants to. Bresson isn't. Bresson is known for being cold and sterile and minimalist, and fair enough. It's just a very different way of going about it. I think that's what makes his film also special and worth a watch. It also has like some very surprising musical interludes, moments where just the characters are walking around through along the riverside and a promenade of Paris, and there's just like singers and players and bands on boats, and there's just these musical interludes where they're just the two lovers, or not lovers, like the two protagonists, Jacques and Marthe, are just holding each other and listening to the music play. I think those are stellar sequences, honestly. But then Visconti has the bar scene, which is on a whole other level for me. And it's just louder, it's just more passionate, it's just more intense. I mean, you cannot compare a charming Marcello Mastroianni performance with a non-actor like Guillaume de Forest, who's supposed to be very boring and banal and blah, 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 very, stereotypically sad Frenchman. Alas, this is how it is. This is what primarily came out of The White Knights. I know there are tons of other adaptations. I can even very briefly go through them looking at the Wikipedia page. There was a Russian film from 1959 directed by Ivan Pireyev, another Russian adaptation in 1992 by Leonid Kvnikidze. I'm sorry. A 2003 Iranian film by Farzad Motamen. Yarkai is an Indian Tamil film by S.P. Yanananthan. A 2005 American film by Ellen Silver, which is also, like, all those movies are incredibly hard to find. I did check them out, but they're nowhere to be found, honestly, in good quality. There's an indie film from 2007, and apparently Two Lovers by James Gray from 2008, the film with Joaquin Phoenix and Gwyneth Paltrow and Vanessa Shaw. That one was also inspired by White Knights. It's not a direct adaptation, which is why I decided not to talk about it, not to touch upon it, even though I love it. It might actually be my favorite film by James Gray. I think it's really, really outstanding. But if I had to choose, I would say, of course, White Knights by Dostoevsky is like 5 stars, must read. And the Visconti film is my favorite adaptation. But the Robert Bresson story is still worth a watch if you want, if you can. Especially because, he's had a very brief filmography. So if you're just going through it, you're going to be watching like 11 or 12 films total. You owe it to yourself. It's 80 minutes long. You do kind of feel the length, but I don't want to shit too much on it. I think it's still very much a worthwhile piece of cinema to watch and to experience. On that note, this is it for this inaugural solo episode of Anatomy of an Adaptation. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know if you have any feedback. I can feel my voice going out at this point. I probably will do more breaks during the next recordings. But I had fun doing this, and I do have some other very, very interesting episodes planned for the coming months, both by myself and with guests. So thank you so much for following us. If you are not subscribed to the podcast here, please subscribe. You can find us on Instagram as well at Anatomy of Adaptation Pod to stay up to date with all new and upcoming releases. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a lovely, lovely day. Goodbye.